Hi, I'm Jeannie Posner, and this is the Posner Property Perspective. As a realtor in Metro Atlanta, I've spent years helping people just like you buy, sell, and create homes that truly fit their lives. In this podcast, we'll dive into everything from home flipping tips, healthy home living, to exploring the unique lifestyles and charms of North Metro Atlanta. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned seller, or just curious about real estate, I'm here to educate, inspire, and to guide you through it all. Because buying or selling a home doesn't have to be stressful. It can actually be fun. So let's take a fresh perspective on real estate together. And I'll see you at the closing table.
Welcome to the Posner Property Perspective podcast. We're here with John. He's one of my clients who moved here from Texas. And his company, though, is not even based in the U.S. So we're going to talk about moves, what it was like, and we'll go from there. John, you've now been living in Atlanta for what, a year and a half?
Yeah, just at a year and a half. Correct.
And how did your company get to Atlanta? Really, I know you're in Suwanee, but.
Sure. No, it's a good question because my company, just in terms of background, was based out of the UK. Outside of it, almost everything in the UK is based in London. My company is actually based in Manchester, on the other side of the country. And they were really, because they're from Manchester, one of the things that they're really attuned to is this idea of hubs in terms of getting product where we need to be. So my company deals in both hardware and software. And the physical distribution of things are really a side. And that's largely the reason that we ended up in Atlanta, because Atlanta is almost like a wheelhouse, right? In terms of distribution. You either go up the East Coast, you go west along the Gulf Coast, or you go south into Florida. And so Atlanta's kind of that distribution point where you make that decision. And it just made a lot of sense for us. And one of our largest customers is actually based in Midtown. Opportunity to spend a lot of time with some key customers as well.
You and your family were in Texas.
Correct.
They all of a sudden say, no, we need you now in Atlanta. Like you say, everything was going remotely, but they wanted you physically here. And how long had you lived in Texas before you moved here?
Pretty much all my life. I'm a military brat. I was actually born on an army base. So we moved around a little bit when I was little, but I've been in Texas for 40 years. And most of that time, I grew up in the Houston area. And then the last 15 years of my life was in just north of Dallas, more in the kind of the Denton area. So for 40 years, I've been, so longer than that, so for 4 decades plus, I've been a Texan. And then, so only a year and a half, a Georgian.
Have we turned you into a UJA fan yet?
You know what? Because I'm a Longhorn, I'm a Longhorn. So both my wife and I went to University of Texas at Austin. And now that we're SEC, right, I'm still with my Longhorns, right? My son, who has no allegiance to the Austin, would love to play tennis for Georgia. But other than that, I'm still a Longhorn.
So talking about your son, one of the things when you made the move here is you had to consider timing because you had a daughter graduating. It was her senior year. You have another child in high school. Then you have 2 that have, what we say, grown and flown.
Yeah.
How did the timing work out for you? Like, how did you have to negotiate with the family? Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. There were some difficult conversations, particularly with the senior. We agreed to stay in Texas through her graduation, and we literally left Texas for our move to the Atlanta area within a couple of weeks of her graduating high school. So she was able to captain the tennis team and did all those sorts of things. She was deeply involved with her community. We agreed to stay there at a employer that was super cooperative and collaborative in that whole process. The freshman was a little bit more of a difficult conversation. So we brought him out here. We looked at different schools that would be a nice parallel to where he was. Opportunity to play tennis. We actually found a really good school for great instruction, a very tech forward campus. In fact, one of the most tech forward campuses in the country is where we ended up sending him to high school. So he's fit in really well. He's playing line 1 and singles on the tennis team. And it was, I think once we settled in, it was a much easier process for him. He made friends very quickly and had the tennis team as well to jump in. You see this theme of tennis being a big thing in my family.
In talking about schools, when we were looking at schools when you were moving, I remember looking at that campus and it looks like a mini college campus. Yeah, it's a really nice So schools were important, trying to determine the aspect. And then you went for new construction.
We did.
And
Yeah.
how was that experience? Had you bought a new home before, or is this
Yeah. Our first new construction. Look, there are things that I absolutely love about new construction. There are things that are really that I was not prepared for when it comes to new construction. So I think there's pluses and minuses in both cases. So let me start with the things that were really great. What was great is everything was brand new. And if anything even had the slightest hiccup, right, the builder was back out and fixing it. We probably, just to get the air conditioner always worked, but just to get that mix right, I think in any new home, you've got to find that right balance between upstairs and downstairs and the back of the house versus the front of the house. And we probably had those folks out, gosh, probably 4 or 5 times over the year period, just to get the balance right, because seasons make a difference and that sort of thing. And they were very responsive, very receptive. They got out and quickly fixed the things that were problematic for us. Everything's brand new, right? So you can put your own stamp on it. You don't have to deal with somebody else's old landscaping or somebody else's choices in terms of paint or those sorts of things. Everything's a blank canvas, which is great. The downside is everything's a blank canvas. You deal with the fact that, hey, all the walls are white, right? And all the colors that you want, you can't leverage somebody else's decision, good or bad, right? You can't leverage somebody else's decision. You have to make an affirmative decision about every wall in the house, right? Or the places where you want to put up trim or those sorts of things. And the thing that was really interesting about our situation is we didn't necessarily go out to buy new. This opportunity just really fell in our lap because the decisions that were made about the interior of this house that we bought were already made. And we were able to move because I had to move very quickly. We had to make a very quick decision. And the only thing I would say is buying new again, and we'd certainly be interested in buying new again, certainly wouldn't rule that out. We would just be making decisions earlier in the process. In this particular case, that wasn't afforded to us because this was
already ready.
Yeah, this house was already in flight because we had to move so quickly. We'd give ourselves a little bit more time to make the flooring decisions and the wall decisions and the carpet decisions that we wanted to make. But overall, I've been very happy with our decision.
One of the things you mentioned is landscaping. And I think what people forget when they buy new homes is they usually give you like 2 trees and 4 bushes. And then it's up to you to landscape. And that can be an interesting, when we bought our home new and we brought in, after a year or two, we brought in a landscaper and putting up all these trees and bushes, but they didn't tell me that 15 years from now, these small little bushes that they put in are going to be huge. Yeah. And they basically overdid it. It's a learning process and learning what part of your lawn gets sun and what doesn't. And I know at one point we had talked about putting in a sprinkler system. Did you ever do that with your home?
We had a couple of bids and it hasn't really been in the list of all the things that we wanted to do. Hasn't really been. The short answer is no. We still intend to do that. But yeah, from that perspective, we have a lot more land to cover with a sprinkler system than where I was coming from. So we've taken some bids and some of those sorts of things, but we've really been able to really develop a pretty nice lawn, even without the sprinkler system. And mostly because the climate here has been much easier to cultivate a really nice lawn than Texas. And I say this as a Texan, right?
Right.
It's easier to landscape here. It just is.
One of the nice things about Atlanta, and you mentioned this, one, we're a hub. We're basically, they like to say that from Atlanta, basically you can get almost anywhere in the U.S. in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Just about. We have the largest single airport. We now have the port in Savannah. So there's so much. Then you get our climate and we get all 4 seasons, nothing too extreme. I watch the map now and I have a good friend in Nevada and it's always like 109 and it's like killing it. In Texas, you guys have had some rough weather like the last 5 or 6 years. You've had ice storms, you've had heat, you've had bad rains and flooding. And then I look at Atlanta and like, we're just in this perfect little location where the weather just works.
Yes.
And I think we're going to see where, just because of different things in Florida, I think you're going to see more people almost retiring in Georgia. I think there's a big opportunity for people that don't want that extreme heat and They're now having trouble getting homeowners insurance. Everything's just more affordable here in Georgia. How have you found that transition? Do you find Georgia more affordable? I know there's been inflation while you've been here, but how do you feel?
Yeah, the puts and takes on the whole, probably a little bit more affordable than where we came from in Texas. And some of that's driven by just what you talk about, the climate, right? In the 15 years I was in Dallas, I put 3 roofs on my house, right?
Yeah.
Just because of hailstorms, right? And like, even if you're insured, number one, right, your insurance is going to go up every year for every year you make a claim. And then you still have an out-of-pocket deductible that hits you every year. So that certainly that piece, it's on par with the Dallas area in terms of just cost of living expenses, groceries and gas and those sorts of things are really about the same. Car insurance is more here, but home insurance is less. There's puts and takes and all of those sorts of things. And this was always interesting because I have some dear friends, and actually my friends who referred me to you.
Right.
Yeah, Brian and Tish, and we talked a little bit about, hey, when you move to Georgia, there's a state income tax. We didn't have one in Texas. The difference is I paid twice what I pay in property tax in Texas. So it's like squeezing a balloon, right? They get the money one way or the other. So it really came out to push for us in terms of cost of living, maybe slightly better here, but Atlanta's incredibly affordable, right? Especially when I compare it to friends that I have that are in San Diego or good Lord, San Diego, incredible. It's probably one of the most beautiful cities in the country, but you pay for that, right? Even in Florida, right? What they're paying for homeowners insurance in Florida is unbelievable.
It's literally off the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. So we found it to be as advertised in terms of affordability. We're in so many wonderful things within reach of the house too. So it's one of the things we really like.
And when we were looking at homes, one of the things important was to have a room for your wife where she can write, because she's a writer. How's that been going while she's been here?
It's good. So she's got that front room. So she's commandeered the office, and that's her space. And that's where she spends a good deal of her time. And the nice thing is, because of the location of the house that you help us find, she overlooks this kind of nice retention pond area with some large trees and that sort of thing. And so she's able to just look out the window and kind of create the worlds that she creates.
She's like me, because now I've been using my sunroom as an office, and squirrel distract me. I'm like, or birds. But it's a nice, looking back at your move, is there anything you'd say, wow, I would have done the move part differently or reorganized something? Is there something that's maybe surprised you?
It's interesting is I think you prepared us, and then Tisha and Brian on the other side really prepared us ahead of time in terms of timing and that sort of thing. If I did think about it, I'd probably not try to move in the dead of summer. What's probably, we didn't have a whole lot of choice, but given the opportunity to be a little bit more flexible in terms of timing, we might have waited until the fall, just so you're not moving when it's literally the hottest part. But again, we've become so accustomed to it coming from Texas, the heat here. So many people complain about the heat, and I think about where I came from. It's been very easy to handle, but that has largely been, that's the only thing that I can think of, Jeannie.
A lot of people say it's more the humidity here. We have a little bit more humidity than areas. But again, we get all 4 seasons. To me, that's one of the biggest selling points for here. And I guess, what is one of the favorite things now that you've been in Atlanta? You found the acting community.
Yeah, absolutely.
And are you surprised about how many opportunities there are here? Or
in fact, that's one of the things for people who are creatives. This is my side thing is I love theater, right? That's my wife and I met doing theater in college and that sort of thing. And while I'm in business, right, my evenings are spent. I just closed a show a couple of weeks ago, and love that. I love that about Georgia, and particularly the Atlanta area, is there are so many opportunities for creatives, whether you want to do theater, film. The film community here is unbelievable, right? In fact, a lot of what I do in theater, I'll stand side by side on stage with somebody who is a professional actor, right? So they're a card-carrying equity member or something like that. So the talent level here is extremely high because the film community here is. But even beyond that, there's a ton of folks who are creative types, right? Tons of writers and visual artists and those sorts of things. The amount of galleries and those sorts of things that you can find really even in some of these smaller towns, right? So we were up in Dahlonega. Just my sister came over to visit from Texas, and we were just tooling around North Georgia, right? So we took them out to see my daughter's campus in Rome at Berry, which is really beautiful.
Really?
And we're just tooling around the area. Took them to Helen, right, which is just a wonderful little day trip, and then we went into Dahlonega, and then just along that little central square, there's wonderful places where people do individually owned artist studios where they do pottery or visual arts, where you have painters or those sorts of things. Yeah, for creatives, it's such a fantastic place to be.
So the diversity in Atlanta is one of the things that probably pulled your company here. And how did they find finding employees? Because there is such a wide range of people who come to Georgia. How has it been for them finding people?
Yeah, it's the diversity side. One of the things that my wife and I both loved, whether it's the working environment, and we found whether you're looking for people. So we, in our U.S. headquarters here in Suwanee, we have traditional white collar roles, right? Sales and administration and those sorts of things. And then we've got a warehouse as well. And it's been pretty easy for us to find talent, and talent that you want to retain, right? Yeah. You can always find somebody to interview, but this has been talent that you want to retain, and it's been very easy to find talent. We love kind of the diversity of the working pool here. We also just love the diversity of when we're sitting in church, right? It looks like the community at large. There's an old saying that sometimes in America, the most segregated place in America is church on a Sunday morning. Our church, we've been able to find a really good church in 12stone here in the area, and love the fact that the church looks like our community. There's rich and poor, every socioeconomic status, every kind of job, every kind of background. And that's one of the things we really.
I think that's one of the things with Atlanta. We've attracted so many people over the years that we just have such a nice diversity. And
yeah,
I'm biased because basically I've been here for my entire life, besides a few years in Manhattan. Totally different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
well, and one of the things that was crazy is the diversity. One of the places that you benefit the most from the diversity in Atlanta is the food. You can find really any kind of food. It doesn't matter what your preference is, right? You can find the traditionals, the great Italian, the great steakhouse, but the Korean food here is spectacular. The Indian food here is spectacular. Doesn't matter what your palate wants, you can find really good options in Atlanta.
And I think that's really expanded during COVID and beyond, that we've just really attracted a lot more restaurants. And we've gotten so many 5-star chefs now and Michelin ratings. So you can go from the local little Cuban sandwich shop that also deserves 5 stars to truly a 5-star restaurant. So that's been a love.
Yeah, that's right. I took a friend of mine down to a Krog Street Market down in
Ponce Leon.
down near Ponce, the market there. And there's literally a Michelin rated, he's a Michelin star chef that started just like a Philly cheesesteak place. I think it's like Fred's Meat and Bread or something like that. It's literally a stand, right? Where you go and you get your stuff and you go to this kind of communal food hall type of situation. And it was spectacular, right? Just fun stuff like that.
One of the best, I live in Dunwoody, one of the best hamburger joints is started here in Dunwoody in a gas station.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I believe it. Totally.
And it's like, not this big, people come from all over.
Sure.
So yeah, I think Atlanta just has so much to offer, and it's worth the move. I think one of the reasons we've also been able to stabilize, and not that we're recession proof here in Atlanta, but we've never, over the years, have never felt it too extreme because we have such diversity in our employment, what kind of things we offer. Right now, you have all these battery companies moving here, electric car companies cars are being manufactured here. We have the movie industry. We have Georgia Tech. We have all this engineering going on. We have just such diversity in our community. We have some of the best hospitals between Emory and Northside. It just really is a great opportunity. And we're so glad that you moved to Atlanta.
Yeah, no, it's been exciting. There's certainly a lot of opportunity. Yeah, you're right in terms of the growth. But Rivian's building a giant plant here. And the great thing is that the leadership within Georgia has made growth a priority, right? And so they've got some very pro-business growth policies. And because of the affordability of Atlanta, it's not a hard sell for businesses to relocate. One of our biggest customers relocated from Ohio several years ago to the Atlanta area, and they're now on their second or third skyscraper that they're building. The latest one is in the Midtown area. But it's because they were able to convince their employee base that there was more opportunity and they weren't going to sacrifice affordability moving from Ohio to Georgia. They were going to get still affordable stuff, but access to more for their employees. And so it was not a hard sell for them.
Yeah, like you say, you have the mountains right here. You do have to drive a little bit to get to a beach, but we have theater, we have the arts, we have museums, we have a lot of culture, a lot of activities, great hiking. People don't realize how many great places there are in Atlanta to hike. And your family's into tennis, so you get a longer season on the tennis courts. That's very important. And then your daughter is going to college here at Berry. People don't realize how many different colleges we have here in Georgia. Between Emory and UGA and Berry and Kennesaw, we really have a lot of different, and can't forget Georgia Tech.
Great world-class institutions. I didn't realize until I toured the Berry campus, the largest campus in the country, just in terms of the space. The student enrollment's obviously much smaller, but the ability to kind of be out on that campus and as you've seen it, like it just goes and it's a beautiful campus. So they do a lot of filming on that campus.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And if you like so more to that college town feel, Athens is just a little over an hour away. So if you want to be in Athens, if you like more of a downtown college, more of an urban college setting, you've got Emory and you've got Georgia Tech and everything's super close. You're right. The beach was a little bit of a haul, but we did make it out to Savannah and out to Tybee Island. And then my wife and I took we went just over the border to Amelia Island. And had a really nice long weekend there.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've had a few clients who have moved from Atlanta to like the Savannah area recently. So that's been interesting.
Yeah. It's one of the salespeople that I work with. Her parents just left the Beaufort, Decula, kind of Lawrenceville area and just relocated down to Savannah. They love it.
Yeah. It's become a big hub. Again, I want to thank you for coming out today and giving a perspective of what it's like to be moving to Atlanta, purchasing a home, because a lot of people on our podcast have been more like the vendors. They can tell you how to get a mortgage. They can tell you how to get what the contractor is going to look like or home inspection. But it's a different perspective of what is it like moving to Georgia? What's it been like? So I appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. And I want to thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for tuning into the Posner Property Perspective. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful as you navigate your real estate journey. Remember, whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring the market, I'm here to help to make the process smooth, exciting, and stress-free. Let's take the next step together. Contact me today. I'd love to hear from you and make your real estate wishes come true. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and I'll see you at the closing table.